Just because you're good at something doesn't mean it's the best use of your time. In fact, the biggest threat to your impact as a leader isn't weakness, it's distraction from your unique strengths. And let me tell you, this is something that I know I personally wrestle with, have wrestled with, and continue to wrestle with today. It's so easy to get stuck doing the work that feels impactful. And it's probably the work that got you to where you are. But as leaders, we have to constantly be elevating our game and distilling our focus. We have to make sure that we are thinking through what is the work that only we can do. And honestly, this is probably one of the hardest things about leading yourself, is because it is so easy to go find important work to do, but it might not be your most important work to do. It might not be the most impactful work that you can do. I'd like to say there's a nice, neat bow that we could wrap around this and call it, this is the leadership problem. And, it's got a single solution, like take 2 aspirin and call me in the morning, but it's not that simple. It's not easy to diagnose, and it's certainly not easy to remedy, because all too often the work still has to get done. And this is something that many, many high-performing leaders get trapped in doing. They think that in order for the work to get done, they have to do it, or there's no one better than them to do it. I don't know who this can be attributed to, but there's the old saying that if you really want to grow your business, you need to step back and step up so you can not work in the business. You can really spend your time working on the business. And while that's easy to say, it's really, really hard to do. The way I like to think about it, though, is every ounce of effort and energy we have is an investment. It's an intentional investment of time. Now, let me be clear. It's intentional even if we're not purposeful in how we do it. Because if we're choosing not to step back, not to reflect, not to think, that in and of itself is an intentional choice. Now, some might argue with me and say, well, Dusty, I'm just caught in a trap, or, it's not intentional if it's something like, that I'm doing subconsciously. I think we always have a choice. We have the opportunity to step back. We have to exercise that. And then we have to be intentional in setting up the systems, the parameters, the roadblocks, the circuit breakers that prevent us from getting stuck. Here's what happens. If we aren't careful with how we measure the investment of our time, what we will get is dilution of value. In business, we often talk about the return on invested capital. We talk about how much business return, how much result we are going to get because of this monetary or financial investment. But instead of dollars, what we're really talking about investing is our time, our energy, our very precious resource. In fact, it's our most precious resource. Many high-performing leaders, and like most certainly myself, I know that I still struggle with this. I have a number of safeguards and tools that I've built into my systems and the systems that we teach to help people create and install circuit breakers to prevent these gaps. But what happens is we get trapped in doing too much for ourselves. We get trapped in doing the wrong things. And oftentimes it's because we're good at them. Frankly, we may be the best at them right now, but that's not the right question. The right question is, what are the things that only we can do? And how much of my time and energy is going towards that? Then we start to get our head wrapped around the real scope of the problem, the real challenge to be addressed. It's not about capability. It's about understanding the dilution of value that comes when you're not spending time on the things that only you can do. There's an old saying, and I don't know who this can be best or first attributed to, that, the great leaders spend more time working on their business because they're no longer in their business. And it's the working in the business trap that catches and ensnares so many of us, because the work has to get done and I'm the best one to do it because it would take more time for me to teach someone, or because I don't have anyone else. What it does, though, the downstream effect of doing this is that it erodes clarity, decision quality, long-term strategic thinking. In working with high-performing, high-functioning leaders, these are people who start companies, are building things, who've run organizations, who've run leadership teams. They own outcomes. I was first introduced to this concept at a John Maxwell Leadercast. And this was back when it was the John Maxwell Leadercast. And John was talking about how we as leaders often spend our time sharpening the wrong saw. Let me just let that sink in for a minute. Like, we're supposed to sharpen our saw, right? In fact, that's what I was thinking when I was sitting there in the audience going, wait a minute, I'm sharpening the wrong saw. I'm supposed to be getting better as a leader. In fact, I should be getting better in every aspect of my leadership. And what John was sharing was that we buy into that fallacy. We buy into that trap because that's what people tell us we should do. In order to be a great leader, we have to be a 10 in all the levels, all the things that we have to do. And that's just not true. And here's the metaphor he used to explain this. And he said, hey, if you're really good at accounting and like it's your 7 skill, isn't it far better for you to put your precious time, effort, and energy making that 7 a 9 or a 10 where it is truly a unique and differentiated capability than taking that same amount of time, effort, and energy and invest in making your writing skills from a 2 to a 4 or from a 4 to a 5? Now, don't get me wrong. John wasn't saying that you can get by only being a 2. There's a necessary minimum of performance standard required at any skill. Like you have to be a 4 perhaps, or you have to be a 5. But his point was that if you really want to be unique, differentiated, and leverage your God-given talents, those things that you do better than anybody else in the world, put your time there, invest your energy there, make that time count by focusing on the area where it creates the most impact. Let's say you had 10 hours a week to work on something. You can either work on making your 7 a 9, or you can work on making your 4 a 6. Well, 6 doesn't stand out. 6 does not create unique differentiation. It doesn't create unique value. It doesn't create a better outcome in a way that only you can do it. And so we as leaders have to get our heads wrapped around the fact that we must be focusing our time on the things that we can do best. And that means we have to get things off our plate. We have to learn to say no. We have to decide in advance what's most important. We have to teach. There's a whole list of things we have to do. In fact, it's not like there's one magic pill that you can take that solves all of it. It's situational. It's dependent. There are certain circumstances where you have to do things, but you can't get stuck in doing them. This really jumped out to me when I was racing triathlons, and it sunk in. And in fact, I remember thinking back about this. This was years and years later when I was trying to figure out how many training hours I needed to put in each of the disciplines in order to meet my race goal. I didn't start long distance triathlon with a background in any of the disciplines, especially swimming. In fact, I might have created quite a stir in the pool the first time I went for a long swim and had to grab the lane line in order to recover at the 75-meter mark. Be that as it may, I wanted to be a great swimmer. I wanted to be like one of those fish that I saw in the pool every day who were gliding through the water effortlessly. Those people who came out of the water at a race, not gasping for breath, but barely looking like they'd even started. I wanted to be like that. And then I had to sit down and do the time understanding. I had to calculate how much time, effort, and energy it was going to take to get me to that level of competence, and then what would be the return on that investment. Well, I was working with the swimming coach, and they said, hey, Dusty, I can get you there, but you're going to need to put 10 hours a week in the pool for the next year. You're going to have to do exactly these efforts. You're going to have to go through the work. You're going to have to build the muscle memory. You're really going to have to deconstruct all of your swimming, and it will save you 20 minutes. And I remember sitting there thinking, okay, I'm going to put in this amount of effort and energy, and in an Ironman race, it's going to save me 20 minutes. I don't need to put this effort in. In fact, then my goal became, how little effort can I do to make sure that I'm competent, make sure that I'm capable, make sure I'm not going to drown. That was always my number one goal. Don't drown. To make sure I'm safe. I love swimming. I enjoy doing it, but I didn't have 10 hours a week. In fact, then I said, okay, if I have these finite number of hours, where can I invest them to get the maximal performance return? And it quickly became clear that swimming wasn't going to give me the maximal return. It was going to come through biking, and it was going to come through running. In fact, for me, with my body type and my race style, it was going to come through cycling. Really focusing my effort and energy on the bike would give me the biggest time savings in the overall race. And that same metaphor works for us as leaders. We have to take the time to do the math, to sit back and work on the business so that we can figure out, is this a thing I'm doing going to create the maximal return? Is this something I should do? And that's the difference for leaders. In a triathlon, I still had to do the work. But on a leadership team, in a leadership environment, we aren't stuck doing the work. And this brings to mind another conference where I saw Andy Stanley speaking, and he was talking about the power of a one-sentence job description. And that was an exercise that everyone in their organization had gone through. And he shared that his assistant had shared one of the most brilliant one-sentence job descriptions he'd ever seen. He said, when he heard it, he just sat back and went, oh, wow, I need to go work on mine. And here it is. Here's what she wrote. I am going to focus on doing the things that I do best in the world so that Andy can focus on doing the things only Andy can do. And that was indicting to me then, and it's still indicting to me now because I still find myself stuck in the same competency trap that I dealt with 20 years ago. And I think that that's something that we as leaders are always struggling with. We're always going to have to overcome because what got us to where we are isn't going to get us to the next level. I mentioned the word competency trap, and that comes from the work that Patrick Lencioni's Table Group does, specifically their working genius assessment. I love that particular assessment, and we use it in our leadership accelerators when we're working with leaders on improving their self-leadership capabilities. But I love it for teams. I love it for team dynamics. I love it for a host of reasons. But I really love it for calling out the competency trap. Those areas of working genius, as they call it, where we're really good, but they're not the places where we get our most energy or where we create the most value. In fact, they're the places that if we're not careful, they'll burn us out. And that's what we as leaders struggle with. We have to break free from our competency traps in order to ensure that we are focusing on the things that only we can do. Most leaders don't need more advice. They simply need clarity. That's what the Vision to Victory scorecard is all about. It's free, it's fast, and it gives you a clear picture of where you are and what's next. Start now at clarityalignmentexecution.com. Let's make sure that your next step forward is the right one. I'll be honest, letting go is hard. It challenges me today, and I'm sure it will continue to challenge me in the future. And it's part of the reason that I have studied how great leaders break free from this, how they install circuit breakers or systems that give themselves the time and the space to create a different reality, to intentionally invest energy more effectively. The insight I want you to take away from this is that doing what only you can do isn't selfish. It's stewardship. It's good stewardship of your time. In fact, you may be stealing from someone else when you're not giving them the opportunity to stretch and to grow. Just because you're the best at doing something doesn't mean that you're the one who should be doing it. Leaders must intentionally protect their time. I think there's two core things that leaders can do that will help them in this regard. The first is about recognizing when it happens and installing a circuit breaker so that you can break free from the trap. And the second is figuring out how to intentionally curate a culture of accountability, to delegate effectively so that you're not pulled right back in. So you're not feeling like you have to be the one who does the work. But here's the most important part. The difference between a good leader and a great one, it just often comes down to this. Just because you're good at doing something doesn't mean it's work that you should do. Doesn't mean it's the best use of your time. Leaders dilute their impact by doing too many of the wrong things. Great leaders are ruthless about how they invest their time and how they maximize the return on that invested time by focusing on the things that only they can do. Focus equals impact. Dilution equals drift. I challenge you to simply take the time for the next couple of weeks and make a list. How did you spend your time? And what are those things that you could offload to someone else, that you could enable them to have their next great opportunity that would allow you to focus on the things that you do best, to allow you to take your level 7 skill or your level 7 impact and make it a 9. That's what great leaders do. They don't do it all at once. They don't take a magic pill and get better at it tomorrow. They get better at it one day at a time, one task at a time, one delegation at a time. As you've listened to this episode today, if there's something that's challenged you, feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to share with you some of the tools we've used for free, no obligation. I love seeing leaders grow. I love seeing leaders perform and improve because they've taken the time to lead themselves first. If you know someone who's struggling with some of these same challenges, share this episode with them. You just might be the person that unlocks their next level of capability. Please subscribe, share, and let us know if there's other ways we can help add value for you. Until next time, this is Leadership Unlocked. Thanks for tuning into this solo episode of Leadership Unlocked. If something hit home today, if it challenged you, clarified something, or gave you a tool that you can use, don't just keep it for yourself. Apply it, share it, talk about it with your team. And if you're leading through something tough right now, just know this: you don't have to figure it out alone. That's what this podcast, this work, and this community are all about. Want more tools like this? Head over to arcusgroup.com/podcast or visit arcusgroup.com and join the newsletter. No fluff, just what helps you lead better. Until next time, keep leading with clarity and courage. This is Leadership Unlocked.